All right, Sean Bormet here with another 5 questions. We are coming off a tough one last Friday against Nebraska. Just kind of like we benefited from some momentum against Iowa. We kind of got on the wrong end of it in that Nebraska duel. So, what were some of the takeaways for the team from that one?
Momentum has to be taken and kept. And, that was a duel where there was a razor thin margin in, 5 matches for sure. Razor thin margin in those first 5, 6, 7 bouts, really. And I think, got off to a rough start with Mike's match, did not compete with the same energy that he had the previous Friday. And, some of that, just consistency and weight management and this week-to-week process right now, and he's adjusting a few things with how he's doing it, and I think it will pay off in the long run, but it obviously didn't pay off for that match. And it boils down to takedowns. That match really, a lot of those matches were decided, we're in on finishes, and we just didn't finish well, and we got caught up in some rolls. Right as we were finishing some takedowns, even in Sergio Lemley's match, caught up in some rolls. But our attack rate was solid, and but it was the finishing that hurt. I think at one point, through some of those matches, we had about 50. We ran on the legs 15 times and just didn't nearly have as many finishes as we needed. Then some razor thin margins with riding, and in these kind of matches, finishing is just crucial. Riding, especially if you get into the tiebreakers, and it's just one of those situations too where we just didn't do a good enough job managing certain moments with the officiating and how it was being officiated in that match, and it kind of caught up and bit us in a couple of those matches, and we just got to make more happen when it comes to scoring points on the feet and doing what it takes to ride and secure your ride and your activity in the top position under these new rules. And that's something we've been working on. These are things we have been working on, things we got to continue to get better in these next several weeks.
So, what'd you come back and work on in the room? What are some specifics?
Well, we talked a lot about just evaluating the trends, as we're getting through these duels and you're getting in tougher, closer matches, more fierce competition, you're starting to see some trends with the officiating, but it's kind of all over the board this year with the new rules and, the reaction time and how they're interpreting stalling on top in these ride-out situations or these mat return situations. And it's just been really inconsistent, and I think it's been that way for all teams, not just our team. And, I'm not saying these are reasons we didn't win matches, but there are things that have to be addressed. There are things we have to iron out in our wrestling to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to score points, get our hand raised, and not let the official be involved in the outcome. And, just some of the inconsistencies that we've seen, we're trying to address those. And a lot of it, also a lot of work on finishing, just continue to work finishing. We're getting all the legs really well in the Nebraska duel, but just better job finishing, especially on teams that seem to roll, create more scrambles as you're trying to finish a takedown. And then just counter offense and short offense. That's another area that we've been kind of really hammering away at. And, and just overall, just talking a lot about different factors as we're starting to look forward. We got two duels left, and we're about 3.5 weeks out from the Big Ten. So, obviously we're continuing to work and make sure that we are competing at the highest level by the time we hit March.
You mentioned consistency earlier, and you mentioned consistency last week. So, that's something that has been, I guess, inconsistent a little bit for us this year. So how can you work on consistency and kind of keep developing consistency as you approach the postseason?
Yeah, it's, part of it's just even like our, having this consistency in our lineup right now. Like, Nebraska was actually the first time we had our full lineup on the mat this season. So, just the consistency in training, having guys healthy, having them competing, so that we're identifying strengths and weaknesses and areas that we got to focus on. We continue to address the right areas in the practice room. Training partners have to be consistent, and the type of energy and intensity and the attitude you're wrestling with. I think it's the time of year where everybody's focused on increasing that. It's been strong, but as you're peaking towards the end of the season, all these things make a difference, because again, you're going into a point where there's a lot of razor thin margins in a lot of these matches, and whether you finish or whether you prevent a score, and in some of these gritty situations on the mat, these are all things that every rep, everything you're doing in your training, everything makes a difference. What you're doing for nutrition, what you're doing for recovery, sleep, everything at this point, every variable makes a difference, and just how you're overall how you're approaching your training, how you're approaching competition. This is a great team. We've had some good conversations. These guys are, I think they're getting really excited about the postseason. There's always a point in the Big Ten season where, you're competing and you're wrestling fierce competition week in, week out. And then you start to come out of that midpoint and you start to see some light in the tunnel in terms of the dual meet season. And the postseason is right around the corner. And it's the most exciting time of the year. And it should bring out your absolute best wrestling.
All right, next up is Indiana this Friday on the road. What do you want to see this Friday?
Just really, the things we've talked about, the things we need to adjust, just continue to see improvements in those areas, just the physicality of our wrestling, the aggressiveness in our wrestling. Obviously, we want to see a higher finish rate, and and then just continue to work through some of these different, strategies and techniques in your wrestling to operate under these new rules, especially on the mat, on the top. With these ride routines and even an activity routine on the top, and continue to see improvement in these areas. And there'll be some good matchups. A couple of these weights, there's going to be some really good matchups that I'm excited to see how we respond coming off this Nebraska duel.
All right, finally, we got a busy stretch coming up with our club guys. A bunch of guys left yesterday with Sergey for Europeans. What are you looking forward to see out on these guys over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, we have 5 guys competing overseas. Malik Amin, Miles Amin, Mitch Feinsilver, Matt Feinsilver, Ben Honus, and Europeans is always, I think, one of the toughest tournaments. I mean, I think it's probably second right behind the World Championships, and it is just great competition every round, deep brackets. It'll be interesting to see, in an Olympic year. I'm just not sure if it'll have the same kind of depth because the European Olympic Games qualifier is also coming up early April. But always fierce competition, great wrestling. So really excited to see our guys compete. They've been working hard, and really looking forward to seeing them wrestle.
All right, Sean, thank you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.